We all remember our StarCrafts and Command & Conquers, but not every RTS has had a long, memorable impact. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 forgotten real-time strategy games. For this list, we're looking at real-time strategy games that were released over 10 years ago and were well received by critics, but for some reason or another have fallen out of online discussions in recent years. Number 10, Stronghold Crusader. This spin-off of Firefly Studios' Stronghold is set during the Crusades, with players able to experience recreations of famous battles from the time period like the Siege of Antioch and the Siege of Jerusalem. The gameplay features several concepts new to the RTS genre. For example, while farming is present in almost every historical-based real-time strategy game, Stronghold Crusader takes place in the harsh deserts of the Middle East, so players have to place farms on scarce farmable ground, making the struggle for resources extremely competitive. This spin-off was so successful among fans that it got its own sequel 10 years later. Number 9, Warzone 2100.
Production completed. Unit under attack.
One of the first fully 3D real-time strategy games, complete with a free-moving camera, the player takes control of The Project, an organized band of survivors trying to rebuild society after a nuclear holocaust.
Commander, you lead Team Alpha, one of 3 expeditionary teams sent out by The Project to recover artifacts from before the collapse.
Gameplay placed heavy emphasis on artillery strikes, making timing and aim critical to victory. Despite positive reception from critics, online support for the game only lasted a year due to the demise of Pumpkin Studios. A fan group bent on keeping the game alive petitioned to make the source code and art content free and open source. Their request was granted, and the game continues to run today, completely managed by a local Warzone community.
The NASDA system was developed to protect us. It was to be the ultimate nuclear deterrent.
Number 8, Empire Earth 2. The original, critically acclaimed Empire Earth took the civilization advancement concept of Age of Empires and brought it to the present age and beyond. The sequel to that sought to improve on the original with a completely new development team, adding new eras, civilizations, and management tools.
Lead the way! Oh, set the ready?
Players begin their empires in the Stone Age and compete in a technological arms race for dominance over the map. While not as innovative as the original, it was a solid game that was well received by critics and fans alike. Unfortunately, its forgettable expansion pack and the abysmal Empire Earth 3 all but killed enthusiasm for the franchise. Number 7, Battlezone 2 Combat Commander. You won't find another game quite like Battlezone 2. It is simultaneously a real-time strategy game, a first-person shooter, and a tank combat simulator. In this title, players take command of American and Soviet forces that team up and save the world from enhanced human soldiers called Scions. Despite garnering positive reviews, this much-hyped sequel got some bad word of mouth due to its high system requirements for the time, along with a buggy multiplayer component. It just goes to show how important first impressions are.
Commander, I've lost contact with Voyager.
Number 6, Total Annihilation Kingdoms. Set in a medieval fantasy world where 4 siblings wage war with each other over control of the land of Darien, this RTS is known for its simple resource system and emphasis on building strategy. What that means is structures can be built at varying speeds depending on which unit is building them, but the faster the structures are built, the faster resources are depleted. This makes for a tense early game and some unpredictable comebacks in the late game. Sadly, the developers' bold decision to swap out the original's sci-fi theme for a fantasy theme threw fans for a loop, and the game has always lived in the shadow of the original Total Annihilation. Number 5, Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth.
The One Ring must be returned to Mount Doom and destroyed in the very fires of its creation.
It's not often that a game based on a popular book or film franchise turns out to be anything more than a quick cash grab. Players take control of one of 4 factions from Tolkien's beloved Middle-earth series as the men of either Rohan or Gondor, or the orcs of either Isengard or Mordor.
Get the Uruk warriors ready for battle!
This game put an interesting spin on the RTS build system, as buildings could only be constructed on predefined plots, and plots could only be secured when the player's forces were in sole possession of it. It should also be mentioned that it features a compelling campaign that recreates some of the most climactic battles from the film trilogy. Number 4. Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber. Usually when you think of real-time strategy, the mind jumps to games that require a mouse and a PC. But this critically acclaimed real-time strategy came out on the N64 of all things. The sequel to the original SNES Ogre Battle, it combines real-time strategy with RPG elements and a satisfying campaign. Here, players take on the role of Magnus Gallant and are tasked with organizing troops into units, choosing unit leaders, and then facing off against enemy armies. Since multiple characters can act at once, it keeps players on their toes as they plan their parries, attacks, and critical hits. It's a real shame that this game isn't talked about more. Number 3. World in Conflict. In an alternate history where the Soviet Union invades the US at the height of the Cold War to prevent a governmental collapse, this one features a unique dynamic campaign where sessions don't rely on resource gathering or base building. Instead, players are required to carefully manage reinforcements as they navigate cityscapes, as when a player buys a unit, a currency known as unit points are subtracted from their inventory, and the player must hold out until reinforcements arrive.
We'll show them that the Red Army bows to no one!
The game's engaging gameplay and narrative wanted excellent reviews, but its memory was marred by a rights shuffle and a botched expansion release.
I can't say I'm very happy about all this.
Number 2. Rise of Nations, Rise of Legends. A spin-off to the popular Rise of Nations. In this game, players travel to the planet of Io, a world where 3 races use both magic and technology in their struggle for dominance. This blending of science and magic sets Rise of Legends apart from its history-based predecessor, as unlike most games where players begin with a home base and then build structures around it, this title introduced the concept of city districts. These districts help the players increase the size of their city while providing different perks and abilities depending on which district is developed.
But the workers are suffering from...
They don't know the meaning of suffering, Lieutenant. Keep them at it.
Despite having a bigger team and budget than its predecessor, the game sold poorly due to declining interest in the genre at the time.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Myth, Fallen Lords.
Hey, that was mine.
Before Halo and Destiny, Bungie was making waves with this real-time strategy series, with a heavy emphasis on the strategy part. Everything in this game is focused on combat, as players don't have resources to manage or bases to build. Instead, both sides were given a set number of military units with no reinforcements whatsoever. That meant that battles were far more complicated than just sending a large number of troops into a slaughtering ground. Plus, you had to also deal with altering weather, which could dramatically alter the outcome of a match. The success of Bungie's other titles may have obscured the greatness of this cult classic game, but if you haven't played it before, it still comes highly recommended.
Yes!
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.